عنكم من الله من شيء إن الحكم إلا لله إن الحكم إلا لله عليه توكلت وعليه فليتوكل المتوكلون ولما دخلوا من حيث أمرهم أبوهم ما كان يغني عنهم من الله من شيء إلا حاجة في نفس يعقوب قضاها وإنه لذو علم لما علمناه ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون ولما دخلوا على يوسف آوى إليه أخاه قال إني أنا أخوك فلا تبتئس بما كانوا يعملون فلما جهزهم بجهازهم جعل السقاية في رحل أخيه ثم أذن مؤذن أيتها العير إنكم لسارقون قالوا وأقبلوا عليهم ماذا تفقدون قالوا نفقد صواع الملك ولمن جاء به حمل بعير وأنا به زعيم قالوا تالله لقد علمتم ما جئنا لنفسد في الأرض وما كنا سارقين قالوا فما جزاؤه إن كنتم كاذبين قالوا جزاؤه من وجد في رحله فهو جزاؤه كذلك نجزي الظالمين فبدأ بأوعيتهم قبل وعاء أخيه ثم استخرجها من وعاء أخيه كذلك كدنا ليوسف ما كان ليأخذ أخاه في دين الملك إلا أن يشاء الله نرفع درجات من نشاء وفوق كل ذي علم عليم قالوا إن سرق فقد سرق أخ له من قبل فأسرها يوسف في نفسه ولم يبده لهم قال أنتم شر مكانا قال أنتم شر مكانا والله أعلم بما تصفون قالوا يا أيها العزيز إن له أبا شيخا كبيرا فخذ أحدنا مكانه إنا نراك من المحسنين قال معاذ الله أن نأخذ إلا من وجدنا متاعنا عنده إنا إذا لظالمون فلما استيئسوا منه خلصوا نجيا قال كبيرهم ألم تعلموا أن أباكم قد أخذ عليكم موثقا من الله ومن قبل ما فرطتم في يوسف فلن أبرأ الأرض حتى يأذن لي أبي أو يحكم الله لي وهو خير الحاكمين ارجعوا إلى أبيكم فقولوا يا أبانا إن ابنك سرق وما شهدنا إلا بما علمنا وما كنا للغيب حافظين واسأل القرية التي كنا فيها والعير التي أقبلنا فيها وإنا لصادقون قال بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا فصبر جميل عسى الله أن يأتيني بهم جميعا إنه هو العليم الحكيم وتولى عنهم وقال يا أسفى يوسف وابيضت عيناه من الحزن فهو كريم قالوا تالله تفتأ تذكر يوسف حتى تكون حرضا أو تكون من الهالكين قال إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله وأعلم من الله ما لا تعلمون.
All right. Assalamu alaikum and bismillah. We normally get started about 7:05. Allow everybody to come on into the room. So we're excited to have you guys here today. Alhamdulillah. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, we're extremely excited. Establishing Islam in America, Conversations with Black Muslim Pioneers by the African American Muslim Alliance. We have Sauda, Bint, Abdul, Malik, alhamdulillah, today, February 13th. So you're joined today by your host, Brother Shahid, and Sister Shakira, founder of African American Muslim Alliance. And Brother Shahid, if you wouldn't mind telling a little bit about us and opening us up in dua, inshallah.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We pray that we gain guidance and insight in this presentation, that it allows for us to draw near to our Lord through educating ourselves about the struggles that African Americans and all Muslims in America have had to establish this religion in America. So we start with just the purest intentions to do what is pleasing to Allah. About us, the mission statement: the AAMA is the central point of contact for the collective representation of African American Muslims in Tampa Bay. Our niyyah is to create an Islamically safe environment that welcomes and enriches the social, physical, financial, and mental welfare of the African American Muslims, thereby making us better equipped to practice our deen individually, in our families, and be examples in societies that teach others, that teach Muslims and non-Muslims about Islam. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
All right, we're going to go ahead and read our bio. So Shahid, we can take turns in reading this one.
Okay,
Sorry, having a little malfunction here. Alhamdulillah. All right, sis, you can turn on your camera and we can give hellos, and then we're going to read your bio.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Welcome. Welcome for coming. We're excited.
Thank you for having me. Alhamdulillah.
Extremely excited. All right. So we're going to go ahead and read this. I am so excited. The Muslim Employed in City Corrections Association. All right. So retired Captain Sauda Bint Abdul Malik joined the New York City Department of Corrections on June 7th. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for myself. She was the second Muslim female to be promoted to the rank of captain on July 15, 2011. She retired on January 1st, 2022. As an officer captain, Abdul Malik was assigned to the Otis Bantam Correction Center and the Central Punitive Segregation Unit, where she provided care, custody, and control for the inmate population. In 2004, she earned her position as a member of the Elite Emergency Service Unit by becoming the first Muslim woman in the history of the department to successfully complete the rigorous training of Hell Week. In hijab. I'm excited to hear about that. In December 2005, she achieved her dream of becoming a certified New York State instructor, earning her the recognition as the first Muslim female defense tactics instructor. Oh, you fight? Okay. She was reassigned to the Correction Academy, where she facilitated classes in general topics, defense tactics, and physical fitness for the numerous recruit and in-service staff members during her tenure.
After being promoted to the rank of captain, she returned back to OBCC CPSU as a supervisor, where she learned investigative skills, incident management, and best correctional practices for operating a correctional facility. It was during this time that Captain Abdul Malik changed the history of the department by having nursing stations implemented in all DOC facilities pursuant to the law. She was later voted to the council chair for Muslim employees in City Corrections Association Incorporated, MECCA, MECCA, on January 1st, 2010, a position she has held honorably until her retirement from the position in January 1st, 2021. After retirement, she volunteered to serve as Mecca's administrative chair for 2022. In 2016, Captain Abdul Malik was selected as the STRT battalion supervisor for the Corrections Academy, where she was responsible for the administration and rollout of the federally monitored defensive tactics and use of force programs for over 10,000 staff members. She served as the department's contents chair for faculty operations and on-the-job training, OJT, where she was responsible for designating designing staff curriculum and simulations. In addition, she provided proper training for visit staff on the L3 Safeway technology, and she revised the search procedures for special populations in DOC. She has received numerous awards throughout her career, and she is dedicated to mentoring tenured and newly hired staff. Her special training includes equal employment opportunity, L3 Safe View instructor development certification, CPR, first aid, conflict resolution, executive protection, chemical agents, UOF extraction, force entry, and defensive tactics.
Oh, okay. So I have to tell you, my husband is laughing because he said, "Do I even need to be here? You're just gonna ooh and ah." And I was like, "Absolutely, absolutely." And I said, "That's not true. That's not true."
Mhm.
So like, you can take yourself off mute. We're gonna hop back. We'll hop back into the top part of the bio, but before we do that, I'm gonna stop screen sharing, and if you can kind of tell us about you. When did you learn about Islam? Are you first generation, second generation? And again, welcome, welcome.
Again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. All praises due to Allah. We praise him, we thank him, we seek his aid and forgiveness. Peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions and the rightly guided. Ameen. So to answer your question, I was born to Muslim parents. My father, Imam Muhammad Abdul Malik, and my mother, Najma Abdul Malik. When I was 18, my father returned to Allah, and I really wanted to learn more about Islam. I wound up going to a African-American university, Morgan State University. And, there I had a chance to spread my wings, if you will. 18, down in Baltimore, from New York. So I had an opportunity to really learn a lot about myself, what I wanted to do in the future, and I took up telecommunications. That was my major. I have a Bachelor of Science in Telecommunications. So my parents, and I'm so grateful for them, may Allah have mercy on both of them. I mean, they wanted children that will grow up to love Islam. They wanted children that will grow up practicing Islam, but they didn't feel the need to force Islam on us, if you will. And that approach worked for me, and that they gave us the guidance that we needed, and they made dua for us. So alhamdulillah, Allah answered their dua. So yes, I am first generation, and to that extent, I'm born in the 70s. So I grew up in the 80s, 90s. Where we had to become independent. And coming from New York, we were very independent. We worked early. I was working at the age of 14, in the summer youth program. We had to have leadership skills, even the dynamics is different during that time frame. You have this block or that block, and you're organizing, you're playing group activities. So you learn about community at an early age. So yeah, I came from Muslim parents, and I'm so grateful for that. And we're going to talk a little bit how I got into practicing completely covering in hijab once I joined the Department of Correction.
Oh, okay. So it was after you joined the department.
Yes, in 2001. Yeah, 2001, I joined the department, and I met a dynamic group of African-American Muslims in the department. So the organization at the time was the Islamic Community of Law Enforcement community. And I just remember, you know, not wearing hijab. My name is Abdul Malik, walking down the hallway, and brother Umar Sadiq Abdullah, my closest companion, my friend, just stopping me in the hallway. I'm walking to post. I'm a rookie officer, not really knowing anything about life because I was the baby of the group, 25 years old when I joined the department, not really knowing what I was doing in law enforcement, coming from a telecommunications background. And he said, sister, you know, Ramadan is coming. Are you going to be fasting? I said, of course, I'm going to be fasting for Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. Didn't know how I was going to do that, working long hours on post, you know, responsible for 60 men. I was working in a male facility, responsible for 60 men at any given time, doing 8-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, not really understanding how that was going to unfold. And still, you know, trying to just catch my bearings of who I was as a young woman at that time. So the brother invited me to come to do security for Ramadan services. I was like, how can this be? Already established. They were making salat, not the officers, you have the Muslim inmates, you have the imams there, you had training, learning. It was an amazing, it was just a life-changing experience. I was around some of the best human beings possible when it came down to Islam. Imam Umar Abdul Jalil, Brother Hassan Abdul Kareem.
I'm gonna pause you and take you back a little bit. How was that established already? Like, do you, I mean, you can tell me now. So,
Exactly.
I mean, at that point you didn't know, you were just like doe-eyed, like, oh, wow. I mean, I know what it's like entering a new job. And then you're like, okay, wow, you know, this is incredible. So if you could take us through that, like, how was that so established?
Amazing. So in 1975, the Islamic Community of Law Enforcement Officers was started by 4 dynamic men by the names of, and I'm gonna read the names off very quickly. Hassan Abdul Rahim. Yep, Hassan Abdul Rahim, Rahimullah. You have Dr. Ali Rahman. You have Brother Jafar Smith and Bashir, and Brother Bashir. These 4 men in 1975 were practicing Muslims in the New York City Department of Correction. And during that time, the administration didn't know much about Islam. So the staff members didn't have the ability to just get off post and go pray. You know, they're fasting during Ramadan. The administration didn't really understand what was Ramadan. And then we had a really fast growing inmate population. And the inmate populations actually put in lawsuits regarding not receiving their, you know, their rights in the facilities. So when they started the organization, they were able to assist the administration in teaching them about Islam and what was needed for staff in the inmate population, which led to the hiring of Muslim imams in the facilities. The officers worked very diligently at that time to also have the Muslim female officers written into policy where we can wear hijab in uniform.
That's pretty big. Yeah.
We were the first municipal organization. New York City Department of Correction was the first municipal organization to actually have the hijab and the kufi written into their uniform policy. And that happened at the hands of the Islamic Community of Law Enforcement Officers. May Allah have mercy on them. I mean, so, which made it easy for me to roll right into my position. So I had early contacts with these pioneers, just coming in that first year, coming in doe-eyed, everybody's making salat, just coming in and—
Yeah, you're saying 2001, so they had already been there about 20 years.
Correct. Some of them 25 years already there.
Wow.
So the organization was already there. In fact, the location they sent me to, Otis Bantam Correctional Facility, I love OBCC, was actually known as the Little Mecca. It had a lot of Muslims there. And Dr. Ali Rahman, he was the warden there at one point and helped to really change the facility around.
Oh, wow.
So I came into the department at a time where we had 9/11. Remember, 9/11 just happened. And
that was one of my questions to you.
Yeah. I was as a recruit, I was in the correction academy when I saw the towers coming down and not knowing if they were going to send us to, to the World Trade and what we had to do in terms of law enforcement. So many of my friends did work down there in the morgue. Most correctional staff work down in the morgue, collecting body parts and things of that nature. I still wasn't sure like what I was doing with the department at that time. So, I just was reflecting.
How did other officers treat you?
Transpired.
Like the non-Muslim officers after with 9/11 happening. I mean, how did they respond? Was it still a brotherhood? And I have to preface this by saying, for the audience and then also for yourself, and I know I asked my husband if he needed to have any question. We always powwow before so we can get an idea of the kind of questions we want to ask after we research and everything like that. And he's a 13-year correction officer, retired. He left that to be a teacher. So he's like, I don't need any questions. And my mom, she was a retired, from Seattle Police Department. So I'm familiar with some of the, I'm also familiar with some of the the mechanics of how the officers work. So I'll put that out there. So he's gonna have a lot of questions for you too. But so I know that there's like a brotherhood normally, within the officers, but how did they respond to the Muslim officers after 9/11?
So Muslims, right? If we're really striving to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we have great character, and we model ourselves after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we're able to articulate the tenets of Islam, people will flock to you. And it was during that time when, character was of the utmost importance, and the brotherhood and sisterhood was very strong. And our brothers and sisters didn't just extend to the Muslims, it was our brothers and sisters in blue. I personally had no problems regarding, my time with the department as an officer during that time period after 9/11. And I love my brothers and sisters in blue. They help to also shape me to who I am, because you got to be able to deal with various cultures and faith. You got to be able to deal with people from all walks of life. You got to be able to deal with conflict, right? And sometimes in the workplace, we try not to talk about religion and things of that nature. But when you're working in an environment like a jail environment, you have to rely on the brothers and sisters to your right and to your left. And my mother always told me, if you're going to be a part of something, you better be a part of the best, which led me to my time in the emergency service unit. I said, I'm going to follow my mother's advice and learn from the best. So I joined ESU in 2004, the first Muslim female in hijab to actually complete a rigorous activity like that. And many of those men and women actually served down in 9/11. And I've learned so much from them. They didn't, I wasn't hazed. It was a male-dominated society. ESU was a male-dominated. It was very few females, let alone a Muslimah. But you had to show and prove. So if your skill set had to be up to par,
What can you give us an example of, like, what kind of skill set and what kind of things did that unit do?
Right. So my career started at the Otis Bantam Correctional Facility, CPSU. CPSU is a place where inmates who had problems in the facilities were shipped to one central location for punitive purposes. And so now you're dealing, mostly with the mental, right? You're dealing with trying to ensure that the individuals are not assaultive, not, hurting anybody. And there's times when you have to defend yourself, use force entry, situations like that. So I learned a lot of cuffing and escorting. I learned, extractions, if you will. So I already had the working experience in the facility, but I wanted to take it a step further. And sometimes that would mean, escorting high classified inmates, or inmates would classified as centrally monitored cases. They have sensitive cases that required additional security. So yeah, ESU was amazing. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm curious about a couple things. You mentioned about it being, and this is one of my questions to you, about being in a masculine environment, right? And how did they respond to you? I know that there's sometimes, they can get a little jazzy with their mouths, even the officers, you know what I mean? How did you respond, or how did you keep one, I guess, your own femininity? When did you have to be tough? Like, how did you navigate all those waters? And I'm trying to relate to you in that experience as well, because I remember a lot of female officers like coming to the house, like during the daytime, they would, they're the boss women, but then after, when they come to the house, they have their nails done, their hair's done, and I got to see the human side of those officers. And I know about some of the things that they dealt with, in regards to sometimes, guys got a little, they got a little off kilt where they had to be checked or something like that. And even like my work environment, I work in, corporate male dominated white America. And so how did you navigate your office area? That's tough. I have so much respect for you.
The first thing is, for me, was uniform, right? I'm in a uniform. That means the white shirt is super white. That means the pants are pressed, really pressed. The sleeve got the press inside, right? So just be looking sharp in uniform. That's the first thing. Number two is not allowing anybody to do or say anything around you that, that is disrespectful or you don't agree with, or backbiting or anything like that. That's just certain things that for me personally, I didn't tolerate when working around certain individuals. And if anything wasn't on the up and up, I would check it right then and there. But
how would you check it, sis?
Don't do that around me. Listen,
I have all these ideas in my head about, you putting people in a, because it did say your specialist is in tactics. We're going to get the tactics. But so, I have all these thoughts in my head. But did you have to get physical?
Never. I've never, alhamdulillah. I think just starting the day off with dua and, making your salah and trying to be that beacon of light. I never saw this, but people would say when certain people come in the room, like you capture their attention or they capture your attention. People used to say that about me, and I humbly, I couldn't understand that. But I've learned later on that certain people do give a certain type of aura where you don't want to say or do certain things around them, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sis." They was like, "Excuse me, sis." I believe that. Oh, I'm sorry, sis. And I was like, I'm not a nun. I'm not a nun. Yeah. I grew up in Brooklyn. Okay, I've heard this before, but they just respected, the individual that I am. The group of people that I was surrounded around was well respected. Yeah. Like I said, like leaders like Imam Umar Abdul Jalil, Brother Abdullah, and Sister Layla. Oh my goodness, I can just go on for days. Like I was the baby of the group too. I don't know, maybe I was protected some way that I didn't know about.
Yeah. I just want to make a point, for parents or young girls or anybody else who's listening, because sometimes we find it difficult to maintain our identity, in our hijab. And I remember you said early on that your parents wanted you to have like a strong Islamic foundation. So, as mentors, as women, in leadership positions, it's really important that you have a confidence in who you are. Wouldn't you? I'm sure I know you agree. And then that's what I can see coming from you is just, knowing, that Allah has you no matter what. I think you said you started out your day in dua. So I didn't want to pass by that. I just really want to make an emphasis for anybody watching, because we've had a lot of males, alhamdulillah, and imams and pioneers on. And so, you're one of the few women that we've had, and your confidence in your hijab and in your presence, it's really commendable. And I just want to recognize that attribute so women can grab onto that and know that they don't have to compromise who they are, in the workplace. So we'll move on, but I really wanted to make that point. I have a question for you. So how do you reconcile? So during 9/11, you joined, and then from going to 9/11 into now, we're going to go back later on into your bio, but I think it's a good question that I'd like to find out. How do you reconcile being a Muslim, and then with the Black Lives Matter, or even when you see police brutality, and then even during 9/11, the terrorists, they were Muslim. Like, how do you resolve those different feelings than being in law enforcement?
So being a Muslim, right, is based on the Quran and Sunnah, right? So you have Muslims who are going to follow Quran and Sunnah, and you have people who say they Muslim but don't follow Quran and Sunnah. My job has always been to understand Islam, and that's what Mecca has given me. Our organization, Muslims Employed in City Corrections, our foundation has always been the 5 pillars of Islam, sticking to the basics. And I don't see where we don't fit in the conversation. We have to be involved in law enforcement. Morally, I just feel like if you're going to, have a entity like law enforcement, you have to have somebody who is going to look at things from a spiritual perspective as well, if you will, and to make sure there's justice. I just feel like there were so many people in my community that winded up in jail, including some family members, that went that way. And I wanted to always ensure that they were receiving justice on the inside. And that's why, the Muslim inmate population fought. Yeah, they fought for to have people of Black and brown folks in law enforcement. They fought to have that. They didn't have that at one point in New York City Department of Correction. It wasn't a predominantly African-American, Black and brown people. So they fought to have that.
Especially in the 70s.
I respect that. Correct. In 1975, it was far few in between. So I didn't take that responsibility lightly. I understood at some point that we were definitely needed in the facilities. I knew under my watch, everybody would be protected as long as I was in charge. And alhamdulillah, Allah facilitated that. I'm grateful. So I feel that Muslims should be in law enforcement and continue to, make a difference, not only from the outside, but within.
I think that's very important because, like my wife said, I did 13 years. It's, in Florida, it was a lot of the correctional facilities here in Florida did not have that same progressive infrastructure that you guys had up in New York. And for in a lot of facilities, I was the only officer, and any complaints that the inmates had or any grievances that they had, if it wasn't for me fighting for them, they would just be completely wouldn't even care. There was multiple times during Ramadan, I had to go in and drop off their meals, or else they would just sit, in the chow hall, and it's like, so it's very important for if you guys are in an area to see, are there Muslims fighting for the inmates? The people in the community having some kind of infrastructure for the inmates, because down here in Florida, we dealt with the good old boy system, and it was the good old boy system is hard to break through as a singular person, so that's very important that that we all work together to try to give the inmates Islam, because for a lot of people that become in Muslim inside of the prison, this is the first time that they can actually think. They're away from they might be sober for the first time. They have a level of quietude in their life, and they respond to the dawah with becoming Muslim. And those people, from our belief, right, they're sinless, and they should have a certain level of respect in our community as Muslims, and not just forget about people behind the gate.
Exactly. And that was always my approach, and how I was taught. Every individual has the opportunity to become Muslim based on how they learn Islam, right? So if they see a walking representation of Islam, it might cause them to become Muslim. And alhamdulillah, I've had several people who have become Muslim, and not only inmates but also officers, based on how they've seen Mecca and the Mecca members striving to do what's right.
Very important.
I think there's a lot of like chaplaincy programs now, and when I talk to them, they get often questions from Muslims like, why should I support the Muslim chaplains? Like, those people are in jail because they did something wrong. But lest we forget, a lot of people actually, like he just said, they find Islam in jail because they have a moment, and some solace and time to think and really and get right with God, with Allah, And so I think it's important. Other than that, people think, oh, well, why should we support that type of work? And so I think, that's a really great point that you guys mentioned. For people that are joining, I'm going to ask you a question on your bio, and some people are joining late, and so they're interested in what we're talking about here. So there's a point, you guys can read this while I ask her this question. This is so awesome, is that you were the first to successfully complete this rigorous training of Hell Week in hijab. What is Hell Week?
Wow, what is Hell Week? First and foremost, if you're going to be a part of the best, they're going to put you through some physical, rigorous training. You right out the gate, you have to complete a certain amount of push-ups. You have to complete a 1.5-mile run in a certain time period. We needed to complete the sit-ups. And then anything physical that came after that, they wanted to see if you were going to break down and quit or stick it out. And that was a whole week of training.
Don't forget the pepper spray.
Yeah, chemical agents, forced entry, physical combat. I almost thought I was in war. No, but the training was amazing. And it was meaningful and helpful, because you get a chance to also learn that camaraderie, that brotherhood, that sisterhood, and understanding that no one individual is stronger than the other when it comes down to teamwork. It really takes a team. You're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So we had to understand what that meant, because a lot of times we were going with a small contingency, and we needed to come out all together in one piece. The same way we went in is the same way we were coming out.
That's it.
And so, Hell Week was an amazing experience for me, in that I learned a lot about who I was, who my character. Was I going to give up? Was I going to fight through? Believe it or not, I started off a shy and quiet person to training 10,000 staff members. I can't even tell you how how that all happened, but Allah just
What does
blessed
it feel
me
like to be the first? I mean, we're having conversation with Black Muslim pioneers. Like, how does it feel to be the first?
So at the time, I didn't even think about, I'm the first this, I'm the first that. I didn't think about that. It was only till recently I was talking to a retired Captain Sharif. He was one of the first male ESU captains in ESU. I just love Captain Sharif. And he called me recently. He was like, sister, you need to go and ask them for your retired shield because you the first to do. And he's kind of running it down. But I realized that I was their dua. In 1975, when they started the Islamic Community of Law Enforcement in Mecca, when they started these organizations, I was their dua. And I remember visiting Brother Hassan before he returned to Allah, Rahimullah, in Florida. And he was just saying, keep making dua for me, keep the legacy alive. He gave me everything I needed to push the organization forward. And I didn't think about being the first this or the first that. I was just trying to be the best Muslim I could be. And it was because I stood on their shoulders that I'm able to worship Allah the way I do today.
That's beautiful. And they, Islam is needed behind the gate, without a doubt. It is the justice that Islam has, that we stand up for justice, even if it's against our own selves. That's the hardest part, that it's just, no matter it's inmate or officer, we're going to stand up for justice. That's the difficult. So doing it for 13 years, I have a question for you. And this, I ask everyone that retires, how did you, and this is what they always say in the academy, is don't take it home. And I've seen plenty of officers, myself included, I don't think that's why I lasted. It was very difficult for me to relieve that stress. How did you not take it home?
I don't think, to answer that question, Rikers Island, there's a physical big bridge, right? That you have to literally go across the bridge. And we would say to each other, leave it at the bridge, right? Leave it at the bridge. And I really would take time to decompress after crossing the bridge, before even driving home. If it was a hard day and I really needed to just sit, make dua again, and then maybe call somebody. My husband, I will call my husband Ali and say, look, this is what happened. What do you think? I need a little time. Can you watch the kids a little bit? I'll call Imam Jelani, who was a younger imam, right? Because sometimes, we have our older imams in the community and it's like, they're my father figures. So I didn't want to really talk to them about it. So I'll go to one of my peers. But these young brothers, it was very important to have that communication with my peers that was knowledgeable. And for me, correcting if I saw a deficiency on how I handle something, or did I, have a misstep in giving dawah or whatever the case may be, I would talk to them and I would work out. If I needed to stop for a minute, hold up, I'm going to the gym. Let me go do a couple of reps, go do some karate, some martial arts or something. I would also work out. So those were the things, the prayer. I didn't do a lot of fasting outside of Ramadan when I was in the facility because the job was very demanding. Being a female working in an environment was very demanding. But to answer your question, it was always the consultation amongst my peers, and the physical workout was very important.
Okay.
And I pray for the correctional officers and those that work, because a lot of staff members, they lost their loved ones because of the long hours. They marriages were broken.
Always talking about that.
Yeah,
he's always talking about his friends that he did all that time in, how they have a short lifespan. Yeah,
and that as well, because the stress of it all is tremendous. And and then the physical, just taking care of the physical body, right? The body has rights over us, and a lot of times we don't get a chance to focus. So now that I'm retired, I'm like really focusing on things that I didn't have a chance or didn't realize that I was neglecting during that time period. So, and I'm not leaving corrections, even though I am retired, I still work to mentor the younger generation, the younger staff, because that's just how, the leadership must come from the younger folk. We need them to keep, pushing forward. So whatever I learned or whatever, things that I missed in terms of, how to decompress and things of that nature, I want to make sure they understand and what they should look out for and, continue to worship Allah.
So I have a question. So you were a leader of 10,000, over 10,000 men and women, different nationalities, different faiths. I have kind of a two-part question, and I'm kind of, it's going to be it's a sister girl question.
Okay.
How you're in charge, 10,000 strong, right? And officers, not just, pencil pushers. These are like, these, they got to be there. You have the masculinity, even the women you have. So how do you, I want to talk about your femininity. How do then, you said you're a wife. So how do you go from that and then be mom, be wife, and decompress in that feminine space when at work you're the boss, how did you navigate that? What advice do you have? Because we have many leaders and women, that are coming up. How did you navigate those waters and balance and energy and all of that?
So, it's a two-part question. So, alhamdulillah, I was responsible for the training of over 10,000 staff members, which went all the way from the chiefs of the departments all the way to the officers, due to the Nunes litigation. All the staff had to be retrained in the use of force and defensive tactics, procedures, and alhamdulillah, I was selected by my DEP at the time, Dep Hearns Minton, and hi Dep, I miss him. He said, Abdul Malik, you're the right person for this position. I need you to do it. Can you do it? And at that point, I felt like, you remember the story of the prophet Yusuf. I didn't really want the position, but I knew I was the person for the job. Why? Because I've been training for over 15 years, and many of the people in the department, I trained from 06 all the way up until that point. I knew a lot of the people's, the strengths, the weaknesses, and I've been a defensive tactics instructor for many years. So it felt right. So, there was times when I would come home, to get to the second part of your question, and I'm like, time for bed, let's go on the bed, right? Finish that food, let's go, right? And so it wasn't until my husband was like, you're not at work right now, right? I was like, oh, okay, right? So it's those times when the work really becomes a part of your personality, and you have to check it by doing what? Getting back to the Quran and Sunnah. That's what kept me centered, right? And to know that my primary job is to be a Muslim. I'm a Muslim, right? And knowing what that role is. I think really studying Islam helped me to understand my role in the Department of Corrections, if that makes sense. I had to really understand that I had a duty, not only to my family, but to mankind. And I felt that working in the facilities and working with the staff members was the best way for me to serve my community. So that's how I did it, sister girlfriend. I had to stay humble, be humble.
Yeah, okay.
And sit down when I needed to, right?
Yeah, and sit down when you needed to.
Right. And then being the council chair for Mecca for 10 years, that's a position. The council chair is equivalent to the president. And, there was times when I kept hearing, certain people would say, oh, a woman can't be a leader of of an organization, a Muslim organization. And I just love my imam. He would say, this is not Salah. The sister could lead the organization, and she's the best one for the job. So I just had that support, not only from the imams, but the brothers in our department that understood that the sisters were the ones really moving Mecca forward to where we are today. So my sister Anita Oaks Abu Bakr, I love her tremendously. Sister Ayana Mumin, these sisters, we would not have been able to do everything we did without that sisterhood, collaboration. Brother Abdul, Malik, Shahid, we all just stayed grounded and just really worked hard to put Allah first.
How did anybody find their voice? Like you had to find yourself. You said you came in quiet. And so I could ask you I could ask the question about how does a woman find her voice? How does she find her power, her strength? But I'd like to ask that of anybody, because just like we say that Black history isn't just Black history, it's American history. So your story
Right.
isn't a story just for women. It's
Right.
a story for mankind. So how does anybody find their power and their strength?
That is a great question. So first, reading, right? Learning, training. It took me looking in the mirror, talking, right? Doing public speaking, really looking at role models, like the mothers of the believers, right? These are my role models. Looking at my mother, my grandparents, my aunts, how they handle conflict, right? And then my father had 21 children, right? He had multiple wives. Yeah. So, and I love my siblings. I don't get a chance to interact with all of them, but just understanding that I was one of many, and we grew up in a community environment. Like, we were the Muslims on the floor, right? I grew up in the projects when I was growing up, and my house was literally on the end, and it was open. The door was literally open. My mother would take in, brothers or sisters for, who were homeless or anything like that. That was friends of the family, So finding my voice took me looking into the mirror, understanding my beautiful African history, to which to this day, my mother and I would always watch Roots, and we would say, we want to know who's the first African to come. So I've been doing that research all this time, and I was able to get to the 1700s, and I'm happy for that, because Sister Salima Stacy Bell, who is the first Mecca council chair, she was able to do that for her family. And she was just such a great role model. And I would sit and talk to her and Sister Aisha Muhammad. These women were so grounded. Sister Amina Haq, Sister Halima. I had great role models around me. I'm talking about Muslim sisters, fully covered in hijab and just beautiful queens. How could I not be their protege, right? So I just learned by being around positive Muslims who were willing to live and die on La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's powerful. So as we're wrapping up, I want to ask you talk to you more about Mecca, and I have what Mecca is. And then I want to ask you, because we have a very diverse community out here in Tampa Bay, and I want to know, how do you navigate, the waters of diversity? I guess two-part question. As an African American, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you tell? And then also, just in general, how do you navigate the waters of diversity and respecting and all people, and advice you might have to anybody, and you can leave us with some thoughts as well.
So let me trying to understand the question in regards to diversity, right? DOC, New York City Department of Correction, is a very diverse organization. So you got to have boundaries, right? So we're a organization of policies and procedures. So certain things that we do, is work related. So while working in the work environment, there's still, I think everybody was necessary. You have your African Americans, you have the Muslims, you have the Bangladeshi society. Just women in corrections. So we're a part of a large delegation of fraternities within the department. But the bond was the blue, right? Working in law enforcement, the bond was the blue. And we still had a rank structure. And, me being a captain, as the START battalion supervisor, a defensive tactics instructor, it was easy for me to just navigate the waters with all the staff members, including the chiefs, if you will. Yeah, it's very eclectic. It's a lot of us. We're from all over. I know you're showing some of the pictures now. Very diverse group. Sister, my career has been amazing. I've met some of the best Muslims during this time on this planet. I'm grateful. I'm just grateful. And as we march in the Muslim Day Parade, we did a lot of the marches in the Muslim Day Parade. And that's where people really got a chance to see Muslim females in hijab, in uniform. We did not realize that this was something that people have never seen, right?
Wow.
So we're just marching in the parade, and it's like, well, let's march in the parade, and we're gonna go have fun. And people were crying, literally crying. Oh my goodness,
Wow.
Muslim sisters in hijab, and that's when I realized that we were doing something really tremendous in the community. I didn't. We kind of took that for granted initially because we were just going to march in the parade. But then to have people from all walks of life see us in uniform, we understood the gravity of what we were doing at that point. So because
Do you
of
know
that,
how many Muslims are in the department now?
How many what?
You know how many Muslims are in the department now that are with Mecca or?
Oh Lord. Right offhand, no, I do not. There are many Muslims in the department, and I'm just moving into the admin chair, but we had a big recruiting class of Muslims, I would say in like 2014. So it was a lot of Muslims that came into the department.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of us have retired. So we're always recruiting. We need some more staff members to come on in, especially from the African American community. I don't see, as a Muslima, I never went out and said, come on, Muslim sisters, come join the Department of Correction. No, sisters would just see us and they would ask and they would join, right? But we definitely need more Muslims in the department. So I encourage everybody to take the exam and see if it's something that you actually want to do. I actually joined the department because my sister is now a retired correction officer, and she was on a job for 20 years. So when I was a little girl, I saw her going to work. I just didn't understand what she was doing, but she made sure that I took the exam and said, always have a backup plan, sis, just in case. And then I had that great teacher at Morgan State University that said, telecommunications is in all walks of life. Don't miss out.
We have a question from the audience that says, how would we do that in an African-American community as the only African-American Muslim that has no role models, period, and when everybody else is Christian? So I don't remember exactly what we were discussing, but if you're able to help this question out at all. Again, I'll read it again. How would we do that as African-American community as the only African-American Muslim that has no role models, period, when everyone else is Christian? If anybody wants, if you want to type more in the chat about that question, we could try to expound on it a little bit more. I'm sorry, we probably move forward a little bit.
Yeah. So
someone else asked, does Mecca membership extend to chaplains in the DOC?
Yes. So That's a great question. So Islamic Community of Law Enforcement Officers started in 1975. In 2006, Mecca revised our mission statement to include not only uniformed staff members, but also our chaplains and non-uniformed staff members. So yes, our organization consists of Muslim and non-Muslim and non-uniform staff members. So we have associate members who are not Muslim, but they enjoy the programs and services that we have. They're able to participate in programs that we do outside of DOC because we are a nonprofit fraternal organization. We do book bag drives, scholarship funds, things of that nature. So we always need help, just moving our agenda forward and trying to be the best role models that we can be in the community.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so we'd like to appreciate you guys. And if you want to, sister, if you want to leave any final thoughts with us, please, and Shahid, then you can close us out.
Oh my goodness, final thoughts. First, I want to thank you all for having me here. I am really feeling retired right now. And as I reflect on the last 20 years, I would say that make your salah, right? Because that's what we're going to be questioned about on the day of judgment. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to walk in the facility and establish prayer with those that were already there. The salat is the first thing we're going to be questioned about. Be kind to your neighbors, right? The inmate population are our neighbors as well. We want to be excellent role models for them. And we got to help each other, get out of line. You got to let them know what's right? But what is right? So studying Islam is very important. Protecting our children and helping them to be the leaders of tomorrow, right? So I definitely give my children more responsibility to have them understand that they are the future, they are the leaders of tomorrow. And that we can only do that if we are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and following the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So thank you so much for having me. I hope I can be that role model that, not only my children and my husband, can be proud of, but the community at large.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so as we finish up here, just want to remind everybody that we will be doing this every day during the month of the Black History Month during February. And inshallah, I'm enjoying this so much that we can continue it on probably on a weekly basis after Black History Month. It's very beneficial and giving the roses to the people that deserve it, building our community. So I really thank you. It's a pleasure to see someone with such lightness and levity after doing 20 years in correction. So the advice that you give, has had to work. So you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead.
I would like to say one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
May Allah have mercy on Imam John Fowler Pridgett. He really helped to keep me grounded, and he just recently returned to Allah. And I just want to acknowledge him. He is one of the founding members of Mecca, and he was that voice that I needed to keep me grounded, to answer your question, that earlier question. I would be remiss if I didn't say that. May Allah have mercy on him.
Ameen.
All right, so let's go ahead and finish up. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We pray to Allah. Yes.
I was going to say just invite them for tomorrow. And I was just going to say that our guest tomorrow is Imam Brother St. Ibrahim, Haji Ibrahim. So this is who our guest is tomorrow. So inshallah, we'll look forward to speaking with you guys, inshallah. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. We pray that Allah guides us, Allah forgives us, He distances our wrong actions from us, and He forgives us on the day of judgment. We send peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu his family, the righteous companions, and the righteous believers. We pray that Allah makes the Quran the spring of our heart, that which gives it life and that which makes it leap. Thank you guys for coming. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa asr inna insana lafi khusr alladhina amanu wa aminu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.